Howdy there, hunting family and fellow outdoor enthusiasts. Welcome to part 2 of our thrilling migratory bird hunting series on Tracks and Tackle, presented by Menser Outdoors. I'm the Arrow Eagle, your host, and today we're continuing our enlightening conversation with the one and only Jonathan Knopp. Jonathan comes with a background of waterfowl hunting, guide experience, and is a championship duck caller. In this episode, we continue our conversation with him, and we're going to shift the focus to the heart of the matter. We're going to be talking about techniques and strategies for hunting migratory birds, as well as gear and preparation. So whether you are a seasoned waterfowl enthusiast looking to sharpen your skills, or if you're a newcomer eager to learn, this episode is packed with valuable insights. So grab your notepads, dust off your decoys, and let's dive into part 2 of our migratory bird hunting series with Jonathan Knopp. Are you ready? Let's get started. Awesome. Well, I know that you are, I wouldn't say, look, I don't call myself an expert in anything, but, I've killed my share of wildlife, in the years that I've hunted. And so when it comes to waterfowl, you've been pretty in tune with this, as far as hunting techniques and strategies and understanding the animal that you're hunting. So if you want to just let's move into techniques and strategies. Totally. And maybe just explain a little bit of different hunting techniques used for migratory birds. You mentioned decoys. I know that you got a lot of calling skills, and that you mentioned, the type of blinds. I know there's different types of blinds. You mentioned, as a young boy, your dad using, a pit blind, and I've never hunted out of a pit blind, but I've been in some very cool blinds on the water, on the little island on the lake somewhere, where you can. So why don't you just get into a little bit of those different types of hunting techniques?
Yeah, totally. There's so much that could be unpacked in this section of techniques and strategies and things. I mean, waterfowl hunting is something that's evolved and changed and so much over the last 100 years and even the last 20. Techniques. The first thing I will say, and I will say this until until I die, is the most important technique. Isn't even a technique. It's scouting and location.
Right.
There is and maybe we'll get to this maybe more later in the conversation, but a helpful paradigm I think for understanding scouting and location is the further you are from where the birds want to be, the harder time you're going to have getting them to where you want them to be.
Yeah.
So if you can hunt on, the X is what we call it, hunt on the X, great. You almost have to get out of the way of the birds because they want to be where you are. And then the further you get away from that, the harder it will be. And then on the flip side of that, you have what's called traffic hunting. You have hunting from where they're roosting overnight to where they want to feed in the morning, and you don't have access to where they want to feed, but you're under their flight line, and you're going to try in most cases to be the first set of decoys they see, and you're going to try to be something big, something that looks exciting, looks like a party's going on, and try to run traffic, and that's pretty difficult. It takes some more skill. It's a totally different game than hunting on the X, but I'd say location. It's got a different technique.
I think of when you start talking about that, I think of the hockey great Wayne Gretzky. And how he would say you don't skate to the puck, you skate to where the puck's gonna end up.
That's right.
It's a similar idea. If you know the pattern, if you can get in that flight pattern, and I loved how you put it. Let's get some decoys out there. Let's look like something exciting's going on. They want to stop and check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that with techniques and strategies, the truth of the matter is the more techniques and strategies you have, the better. You don't want to have just one. We all start somewhere, right? And we need to start with what works and then build and add tools. But I have when I first started hunting, I decided I'm going to buy the best decoys that I can buy. I'm going to buy the best blinds that I can buy to have the best tools. And I started with a more expensive, smaller base of decoys, and then as I put more years and more time invested, got to a much larger spread of lower quality decoys, because sometimes you're going to kill the most geese with 8 decoys out in the field, and other days you aren't going to have a chance to kill anything if you don't have 300 decoys out, so
Sure.
I mean, and
It's like tools in the toolbox,
it
right?
is. That's right. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yep. As many tools in the toolbox as you can.
Yeah. So
Yep.
what would you say, like from your perspective? Because I know that you've got this a pretty good history of being a duck caller. Um, Decoys are visual.
Yep.
Calling is audio.
Yep.
I know they both play a role.
Totally.
But if you had to like go in with no decoys and just a call, or would you, if like tonight you were going to bring your call, you don't have your call, but say we got a bunch of decoys,
Yep.
and we wanted to go and set up.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a preferred path, or is that a crazy question? Yeah.
I'll actually, I want to answer one other thing.
Is it like peanut butter and jelly? Yeah. Like you need it's better with both always, right?
I would actually say I would say, let me put it this way. I've actually done both. I've done both before. I find with those decoys, no calling with no decoys. And I would say that to answer your point more directly, I would rather have decoys over calling. I mean, all day, every day.
Just because it's visual.
It's visual. Yep. There's something that they can see, that they can land, fly into and land with. And, I've called I've called ducks without decoys and they get them circling and stuff. But yeah, I mean,
they're wondering
exactly.
where that. All right, where am I going? Where's that coming from?
Yep. Exactly. Yep. So I think that I have maybe a unique perspective on calling. I think that obviously it's something I've invested a lot of my time and passion into, but I think that it really is far more detrimental to most hunters calling, or maybe the way they call, is far more detrimental than helpful. I think that if it's a skill you develop well, and you know how to use instead of. Yeah, well, let me just say it this way. A lot of people want to make all the different sounds, and they just want to just blow the call the whole time they're hunting. But when to call is far more important than what to call. And although I'd never instruct people. I've taught people to blow calls, and I would never teach somebody only to know, like on a goose call, a honk, a cluck, and a moan. But you will absolutely kill more geese with a honk, cluck, and moan, and knowing when to use those three than you will if you know the whole dictionary, but have never learned the actual skills of, reading the bird and watching their flight and their patterns and seeing where they're looking. All of that is so infinitely more important than
yeah, that makes sense. So like that bird's coming through, and you might be sending noise out through the call, but if you're not speaking their language, they know something's not right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm thinking about the decoys, and you got floaters that you can set out, but then those decoys with a little bit of motion, that's going to catch their eye.
Absolutely.
Even if there's no calling,
absolutely,
you get their attention, and they want to come check it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's nothing like when those birds come in and cup those wings, right?
That's right. Yeah, and that's something. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it with motion. But that is so important, is motion. A lot of hunters struggle to kill ducks and geese. Geese is much harder. You have to use a flag, but kill ducks because the ducks just sit there on a lake and there's no ripples, there's no movement. And so what we have to overcome that is spinning wing decoys. That in Washington State, electronic spinning wing decoys are illegal.
Okay.
So you can't use those. Maybe I can share a funny story later of having done that and having run them with the cops. I've a
lot of things we learn from experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I will tell you, in a state where it's illegal, it's like almost unethical that how well they work. I mean, it's a magnet, and there's a reason it's illegal,
Yeah, like we can't bait and hunt over bait here in Pennsylvania. and it's because corn's like a magnet, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
candy to
Yep.
these deer.
That's
And
yeah.
it's like you
That's
got a
right.
room full of toddlers and you throw a bunch of chocolate bars out.
Yep.
They're running for the candy. So
Totally. So to overcome that, we have pull string decoys that you can pull a string and the wings will spin, and we have wind power decoys where the wind will spin the wings. So we use those for motion. Then we also have what's called a jerk cord. So you have a weight with a bungee attached to a rope or a line, and you hook decoys up to that line, and then you pull and stretch that bungee back and forth. The decoys move in the water, and that gives it that gives an appearance of those birds being real. Even if every duck isn't moving, the fact that there's ripples around the decoys,
just creating some motion.
Yeah, from above, it reflects differently off the water, and it makes them look like things are alive. And I'd say the biggest thing is I don't want to gloss over probably the most important strategy and technique period is concealment. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, like I know I just said a location is the most important thing, but I'm sometimes I'm tempted to say they're both the most important thing, just because you can be in the best location if you aren't well concealed, you aren't gonna do anything.
Yeah, so like camo,
Yeah.
how good is like a duck or a goose's eye? Where they're like they
Yeah.
can see, the white on my
Yeah.
arms or anything like that. You want to be camoed up pretty well and concealed in your blind.
Absolutely, yeah. So they actually, differently than like deer, I believe deer can only, last I remember reading, deer have certain colors they can't see.
That's right.
Right. So I think they can see, what is it, green, red, and blue.
Yeah, it's like a color
that.
blindness,
Yep,
so
color blindness.
they see in different hues.
Yep. So ducks don't have that. And in fact, ducks can see. We estimate based upon their cones and how many cones and these different things in their eye that they can see 3 times the detail of the human eye and 3 times as far as the human eye. So I want to talk about something.
So concealment matters.
Concealment matters. That's right. I mean, visual stimulation. I mean, it's no wonder spinning wing decoys are so important in motion decoys, but also concealment. So, it's interesting about camouflage. Waterfowl hunting is probably one of the few hunting subcategories of North American hunting where your camouflage can mean absolutely nothing. I've taken people hunting in bright purple and blues and all these different colors because of, like we talked about before, the blind. You're going to be completely covering them up. So there's exceptions to that, but typically with concealment, you either have what's called an A-frame blind or a box blind, where picture like a lean-to shelter, but it's fabric with what are called stubble straps, so you can shove brush in there, and then and they wouldn't have a top, or maybe that'll flip up top, and then you have pit blinds, like I said, underground. That's the best way to go. I mean, that's so far and away the best way to go when you can in the field. And then you have layout blinds, which are picture a sleeping bag with a frame, and then the front of that just pops open. When you
it's
go
like
to
some
sit
barn doors, you can just throw them open and shoot.
Yep, that's exactly right. So those are those are the ways that we keep ourselves concealed with blinds, and it's interesting, again, like with the camouflage. Camouflage can help you, and I'm an advocate for it for sure. But how well you brush those blinds up and how well you blend those into the surrounding.
You want it to look natural.
Yeah, yep, exactly. The nature and everything around them, the bushes and the weeds and stuff. It's interesting because if I had to put my finger on one thing that I would probably 80 to 90% of hunters could improve on and see immediately see increased results and higher yields of waterfowl, shooting their limits, getting birds. It's concealment, far and away. I've hunted hundreds of days out hunting, right? And I cannot tell you how many of those times people don't think about the fact that ducks, it seems silly, but don't think about the fact that ducks are above them. So they'll brush up the front of the blind,
but not up top.
Blind, but they won't even think about what's above them.
Yeah, that does make complete sense.
Yeah.
As we sit here and say that.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're looking at everything from the ground level.
Yep, that's right. And that's exactly what happens. People back up, they look from 20 yards away, and they're like, wow, that looks great. A duck couldn't see that. But you get on top of that blind, and there's
I've done some hunting, in the spaces where I've hunted, in some like flooded woodland.
Yeah.
And so a lot of in those type situations, it might be, just a stand.
Yep.
Get the boat in, stand on a tree, and
Yep.
you're sitting at the base of that tree, just a
Yep.
couple feet above the water,
Yeah.
and you gotta just like be
Stay
completely
still.
still,
Yep.
but you do have the canopy cover,
Yeah.
hunting the edge
Yeah.
of those woods, so you get some of those woodland ducks that come in or
You
whatever.
do.
It's a different experience
It
than on
is.
the open lake.
Yep, it is, and I would say there's caveats certainly to everything
Sure.
I've said. Like, I mean, one of my favorite ways to hunt, honestly, is without any blind, in cattails and in reeds. You take a
Okay.
bucket and you have a lid on it, and you sit on that, maybe in the water even a little bit, and but yeah, using the natural vegetation. Oftentimes people. It's kind of sorry, I'm chuckling to myself. But think how many times I've seen them do this, where people are like, okay, we're going to hunt these reeds, and they go and immediately stomp down as many reeds around this area that they want to sit as possible. But that
It doesn't look
completely
natural.
destroys all of their top cover, and like you said, it doesn't look natural. And so I'm really an advocate just for being as low impact, into the environment around where you're hunting
Love that.
and stuff. I mean, not only does it help preserve the area, and but also, I mean, it makes you more successful.
Yeah, one of the things we say here on the show is, nature is our playground.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, it's taking care of the nature too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's part of that conservation effort. We don't
Absolutely.
want to, destroy or leave a pattern. Like, can we leave it better than we found it? Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, as far as seasonal patterns and timing, how's migratory bird hunting influenced by that?
Yeah. Totally. So there's a lots there that could be unpacked. I mean, as a general rule of thumb, we think of weather as it gets colder up north, birds head south. There's a lot of truth to that. How weather and seasons influence migration really depends on the species, actually. So you have certain species like teal that are the first to migrate south. I mean, sometimes I feel like they catch us like slightly a little chilly wind, and they just like, hey, see ya, we're gone.
Yeah, we're out of here.
And same with speckle belly geese. I know I didn't mention earlier. There's also snow geese, greater or lesser snow geese, and speckle belly or white fronted goose, and speckle bellies. They're the same thing. I mean, are very early on. They
super sensitive.
Yep, super sensitive, and then after those species of ducks and geese that migrate early, you'll get the unsuccessful breeding pairs actually that come down first. So you'll have ducks and geese, the ones that didn't have any babies or the babies were taken by predators. They come down next, actually quite early, and then it's after that. I recently kind of realized that where I grew up on the Pacific Flyway, it was kind of unique because there's about 600 miles or so from the breeding grounds up north to where I am, where there's very, very little area for them to stop over and rest. So most ducks only travel about 850 miles, 700, 850 miles to winter from their breeding grounds, and they can cover that in one night if they want to. They get a good tailwind behind them, and they can do it in 8 hours. So,
right. So they use the jet stream and everything
right.
to their advantage, right?
They do.
Let's take the path of least resistance.
Yep.
Yeah.
They do, and it's funny, you actually get on that topic, you actually get some disagreement between waterfowl biologists, actually, between whether ducks will migrate further in a headwind or a tailwind.
Okay.
Because headwinds create more lift for the ducks. It's easier for them to maintain lift, but a tailwind, obviously helps propel them forward. They can put less effort into moving forward. So I don't know. It's interesting. They've done some studies that have shown that some ducks migrate more in headwinds and some ducks migrate more in tailwinds, and it was fascinates me. But one of the misnomers I was thinking about when you asked this was the fact that ducks and geese in general don't actually stay ahead of bad weather.
Okay.
So that doesn't
impact their flight pattern really that much.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. So they want to say so. I mean, I guess you should break it down like this. you have 30, let's say 40 million ducks, up there, right? Some of them, like it to be 70 degrees in their house. Some like
Sure.
65, some like 55, some like
Right.
4, and keep going down. And then you have a lot that if it doesn't matter if everything's iced up, if there is any water for them to be in, they'll be there. And water, of course, is important because that's where they roost and they sleep overnight, predominantly. So,
That's like me. Like
yep,
I run a little bit hot, and so
yep,
I like it chilly. But my wife, she wants it. She'd rather be in Florida right now
yeah,
than in Pennsylvania because it's warm down there. So
yep, it's exactly the same. So you end up getting flights of ducks and geese actually that multiple waves. So you'll have some that when it gets a little bit chilly, you'll start seeing some birds show up. And then when you get snow, you might see more birds show up. Then when things start to really ice up and water access gets limited, you'll see more birds show up. But in general, ducks and geese, they actually, let's say, so where I come from, you'll have really nasty days sometimes where it's, I mean, sub-zero, or in the single
hmm
digits, and snow and wind and all this and blizzard conditions, and those ducks and geese, they don't leave ahead of it. A lot of times what they do is they actually go out to feed. They know it's coming,
yeah, right.
and they go out, they feed really heavily. That's sometimes the best time to hunt them. Or if it sneaks up on them, hunting in those conditions can be really good. But they wait for it to blow over, and then a lot of times they get up and leave. So it's a little bit of a misnomer that the snow and ice, they stay ahead of it, because a lot of times they don't. And you get some really ornery, ducks and geese that, like I said, if there's any food available, any water, they aren't going to go.
So I'm a novice at
Sure.
duck hunting, and I want to plan. I want to get into it. When
Yeah.
is the best time
Yep.
for me to go hunting? I mean, obviously there are seasons
Sure.
that indicate this for us,
Yes.
right? But
Yeah.
like, what is the season to
Yeah.
go hunting?
It's a great question, and I think it comes down to what you want to target. So if you want to target teal, the earlier in the season, you go out. You're going to see a lot of teal. You're going to see fewer later on. If you want to hunt geese, um, you need probably at least a frost first. A good rule of thumb is wait until there's a frost. Wait until it's at 30 degrees at night, and then go start looking. With ducks, wait for a snowfall. So the reason I say this more weather dependent is, yeah, as a general rule, where I come from, you will get a good push of ducks at the end of October. About 2 to 3 weeks later, in that window, we'll get another flight coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And then in December, you might get 2 to 3 different pushes of ducks and geese in, depending on how cold it is, how icy it is, or some years you get it freezes like the frost line is, I mean, 60 miles north of us,
Sure.
and it's frozen and there's ice, but we're open, and so you'll get several 100,000 birds, million, probably, several million birds in our flyway that just stop right there, So, if I was to give one time, I would say January is going to be your best month for sure for hunting waterfowl for ducks and geese. November and December are, I would say, your second to third best, but it comes back to scouting, knowing
Yeah,
when there's birds there and where they are.
that makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
good sense. So as far as like gear and prep, as you
yeah,
mentioned, scouting, like the
yeah,
preparation. I know that you talked a little bit of camouflage, but
yeah,
maybe just discuss a little bit about the gear that's required for successful, migratory bird hunting.
yeah, for sure.
The type of firearms you're using,
Yeah,
different types of ammunition.
yeah,
Anything else that you could think of that's related to, what do I need as a novice hunter
yeah.
to go out and be successful?
Yep. So for a novice hunter to be successful, any 12 gauge or 20 gauge shotgun is going to be just fine. Yep. Typically, so uh, for a long time now, you haven't been able to shoot lead, right? And we
Right,
don't want to, because we
right.
don't want to. We want to preserve the habitat in animals. So we don't shoot lead. So we shoot steel, bismuth, or tungsten. Predominantly steel. It's the cheapest to produce. So for ducks, you're looking at between 4 shot for smaller ducks to 2 shot for larger ducks, maybe BB. I've shot hundreds of ducks with probably with BB. That's fine. Um, and then for geese, you're probably the smallest you're going to get. You're going to go is 2 shot for smaller geese, up to BB or triple B. If you have a 3.5 inch, 12 gauge, or you shoot maybe a 10 gauge even, you're going to shoot a little bit larger pellets because you can have more of them, more larger pellets. So So that would be the framework I would use. I almost never shoot 4-shot. I if I was going to go out and buy a case of shot shells today, I'd buy BB because I know I can shoot ducks and geese with them. If I
Okay.
know I'm going to duck hunt, I'm shooting 2-shot.
Okay.
So
that's what's going in the bag.
That's going in the bag. Yep. I mean, that's why I probably have, a couple cases worth. So.
And then I'm loading the truck up.
Yeah.
As far as like you said, it depends on your blind selection.
Yeah.
To determine whether you need camo. It depends on the location as to whether I'm going in, I'm hunting wetlands and I've got waders on, or if I'm in a field and I'm in a dry blind,
Yep.
There's a lot of different scenarios that you can place yourself in to hunt these type of birds.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head. If you're hunting water, you need waders. If you're hunting a field, you want bibs. Layering, I think, is really important. A lot of times in the morning it's cooler than the evening, or if you're hiking in somewhere, sometimes you want to hike in lighter and be able to put an extra layer on something waterproof and weather resistant. On the outside, I mean, and this is probably across all types of hunting, but I am a big fan of merino wool. Mm-hmm. Wool's great. It's lightweight, breathable. And it and when you get, because with waterfowl hunting, I mean, pretty much across the board, you're going to get wet, whether that's water from outside or you're going to get sweaty and hot. I mean, and nothing wicks moisture when it keeps you warm better than wool. In my opinion.
That makes sense. So like for me, we're going out to your ranch. We're planning a trip.
Yeah.
What are the things that I should take into consideration?
Yeah.
When planning a trip to go duck hunting.
Plan a trip. Yep. I would say be prepared for all types of weather. So you want your rain gear, you want snow gear, you want, if you have a 55-degree day, you're going to want something lighter weight. You want waders, you're going to want bibs, you're going to want waterproof boots, or shoes, for sure. If you've been practicing your calling, you know what you're doing, bring your calls, and if you're going hunting with somebody who's experienced, they love teaching, and giving instruction and help. So bring your calls, bring your shotgun, bring shells. I'm a really big advocate for safety gear and first aid kits and stuff. I mean,
you always need something.
You always do.
You never know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And there's always, we always say that you can go out and you might not always harvest an animal, but you're going to always have a story.
That's right.
Some of them involve first aid.
Yes, that is absolutely right. Oh my goodness, yeah. It's one of those things where it's like you have to respect Murphy's Law.
Yep. If
something can go wrong, it will, and think about that. And keep that aware. Yeah, be aware of that. The other thing that's a non-negotiable is a headlamp.
Yep.
A headlamp or a flashlight. I mean, you're going to be going out. No matter what, you're going to be going out at night before the sun comes up to set up, and you might be out after it gets dark. Cleaning up, and you're going to need a headlamp. I mean, those are some things that are really important. Food's important, and water. People forget, and when it's cold, to drink water, and you need you need actually sometimes more water, because you're sweating and stuff to keep your body warm, and that's really important.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, like, whenever we hunt the big woods that we hunt in, deer have a super sensitive smell. White-tailed deer, they can smell amazing, and scent control matters so much.
Yeah.
But I'm going to sit in the woods for 8 hours and put a long day sit in, or longer some days. It's going to involve some snacks.
That's right.
And so we've got certain internal debates within our hunting camp of do peanut butter crackers do they entice deer or do they deter deer?
Yeah, that's right.
And there are varying points. I for one say that peanut butter cracker is always a good incentive, even though I'm the one eating it. Who doesn't love peanut butter, right?
That's right.
So Little Debbie's and some Mountain Dew, they've gotten many a hunter through a day of hunting. So
yeah.
As we conclude this gear-packed, strategy-filled episode of our Migratory Bird Hunting series, our sincere thanks goes out to Jonathan Knopp for being our guide through this exciting terrain. We've learned valuable tips on techniques, strategies, and preparation that can elevate our waterfowl hunting experiences. But guess what? Our adventure is far from over. In the upcoming episode, we're going to be shifting gears once again. We're going to be delving into the world of personal experiences, hear some stories from the field, and talk about memorable moments that define the heart and soul of migratory bird hunting. So as we wrap up our interview with Jonathan, stay tuned for an episode filled with tales of triumph, challenges, and unforgettable encounters with these magnificent birds. It's going to be a journey of shared passion and camaraderie that every outdoor enthusiast can relate to. And as always, a big thank you to our listeners for being a part of this incredible journey with us. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss the grand finale of our migratory bird hunting interview. And until next time, remember to respect the wilderness, cherish your hunting experiences, and stay tuned for more adventures on Tracks and Tackle.